We open with a large beaten vessel approaching an isolated island. Across many a nautical mile through the storm and bashing sea, now you find yourselves here. The island at the end of the world. The island marked on your map with a large red X. The island you've now scoured for a 10-day, with no hide, no hair of any treasure. Was this all for naught? Or in the dark absence of the new moon, will the truth be revealed? Welcome to We Open With, the show where we share exciting story ideas for your next role-playing game and dive into what bringing them to life might actually look like. I'm Alan.
I'm Slow.
And I'm James.
When you guys first read this, did any ideas jump into mind?
This is your classic pirate adventure, of course. It does have a nice, the dark absence of the new moon. That's a very interesting thought. That's got some spooky supernatural vibes to it. Very Pirates of the Caribbean.
I mean, anything with the moon makes me think of weird fae stuff. But the line that stuck out to me was the island at the end of the world. I just think that's a super cool concept. You get to the edge of the flat disc.
Oh yeah.
And
literal.
Yeah. And then there's just an island there.
Yeah, of course. What else would it be? I don't understand.
Of course.
I know that when I wrote this, I had a lot of brainstorming being like, okay, well, when is a treasure map not a treasure map, right? Maybe the X is marked on here as a warning or to let you know where you sealed that dead god.
Don't go to this exact spot.
Yeah,
we'll show you exactly where to go so you don't go exactly there. Anywhere else is great. Really, it should have been a map with X's on every square inch of this thing except for this one, because this is where you don't want to dig.
Everyone knows that X's mean don't go here.
Honestly.
That's an interesting thought, though, because if there's something there that you shouldn't be going here, there's clearly a gap in information. Maybe this was left by people who didn't communicate the same way. So the runes on your map don't make any sense to you, but they look important. And there's something shiny somewhere, so it's got to mean treasure.
Oh, that's true.
There are things that people have made, usually crazy people, but they've made that are intended to jumpstart, be information to jumpstart society after an apocalypse, and they write it in as many different languages as possible in case they don't speak the same way. I think about the discs we sent out into space that are trying to communicate through mathematical principles, a universal language.
I like the idea of maybe the X is, like you said, just a rune in some long dead language. My mind sort of immediately goes to if there's a map here, clearly somebody's been here. What have they left behind? Are we talking ruins? Are we talking, did they plant some sort of forest? I don't know. There's any number of things that they could have done way back in yonder time. It's just, what did they actually do?
Now, is this island at the end of the world or at the end of the world? Maybe this is a way out of the boundaries of what you thought was the entirety of the world.
Oh, shit. I'm going to just start latching onto ideas so that we could start building something around it. I love the idea that it is something so ancient that the communication is different. I love the idea of this being otherworldly. I think honestly, because now I'm grabbing on Kingdom Hearts and Destiny Islands.
If you're listening to these early episodes, there might be a little bit of a theme here. Just a heads up.
I like the idea that, maybe in the absence of the new moon is when the night is pitch black enough that you can see a very dim light coming up through the sand of the island, revealing underground ruins, wherein there is some kind of device.
Devices are cool.
I like devices. We are very pro device here. Literary device, physical device, technological device, absolutely all of them.
There's a metaphor under the sand.
I like all that. So how do we make that something playable?
I think when you're trying to make something playable, you want to figure out where the borders are, right? So like you have to figure out big concept, where are the walls, and then I guess where the action is. Because if you pitch this as like, yeah, you go down these stairs and there's this one button you can hit and it like resets the world, and it's like, cool, where's the game in that? Like you're just going to be talking to your players and then you'll tell them about this light, they'll go downstairs, you'll tell them about the button, they hit it, and you're like, this is, now let me just like narrate my short story to you for the next 30 minutes.
You just described the game Bastion, which is one of my favorite games of all time, so be careful.
I did like Bastion. We just need more like guitar and slow vocals.
Yeah, if you can get Logan Cunningham to come narrate your game, you're golden. It doesn't matter what your scenario is.
Right.
We have the idea of this pretty like otherworldly thing. How would they interact with it?
Ooh.
How would they be able to glean what this does? Maybe there's like, I'm going to draw pretty heavily on like Mass Effect here. Like, what if there's an ancient AI that is old and corrupted, but it can answer basic questions, but maybe the answers that it gives don't have the context of the way that the culture is now. So it speaks in riddles and metaphors, but its meaning is clear if you knew the way it was speaking, which is just a fun thing to just do on the fly as a DM.
Well, like that sparks my brain of like the miscommunication when in Halo, when Master Chief's learning about the Halos, they're like, oh, these are weapons we can use to like save the universe. And it's like, yeah, you save the universe by wiping out life in like all together.
I think this brings up a pretty good, just like general, like one-shot construction kind of thing of just take stuff that you know and adapt it. You don't need to try to rewrite the way that stories work. I did a one-shot a little while ago that I just took the plot of the movie Die Hard and I put people in it. I made it a little more overt because the fun for me was, when will they figure out they're in Die Hard? But most of what we've done so far is just be like, oh, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. Don't shy away from that. Lean into it. Also because your players are going to be spending about 60% of their brain power trying to figure out the exact scenario that you're painting. They're not going to take the big overhead view and be like, oh, that's like this other thing. They're going to be in the moment in the game operating at like 25% capacity. Like, you're fine.
I'm in a constant state of, do I share this fun book that I just read with my friends, or do I keep it a secret so they won't know what I'm stealing from?
I had an entire campaign that was derailed by the fact that Alan and another one of my players played the game Outer Wilds.
Oh, true.
I wanted to take those themes, and then they played them. I'm like, well, you just experienced it better than I ever will. So like, we're done now.
When I'm thinking of sort of putting together a one shot, I like to sort of, I guess, apply the structure of acts to it. And especially with this, where we have clearly there's something that is on this island that is not obvious, or even I don't know what is above obvious in terms of obscurity.
Intelligible,
apparent. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. That's good words. It's not apparent even after 10 days of searching, but there's something about this moon, and so it seems to me, at least, the first act, so to speak, of this is going to be actually finding what's there. We don't know what it is, but we know that something about the moon is making it apparent. And so asking the question of, okay, what is it about the new moon, whether it's the lack of moonlight, the phase of the moon, or et cetera, et cetera. What about this is actually making this apparent?
So I think knowing your players too is also very, very, very important. This is not something that I would ever be interested in at all. But if you're the kind of person that likes to use like encumbrance and needs rations for however many days, like you could make a whole little gameplay bit out of, hey, you're on this island. It's been 10 days. Your supplies are running out. How are you going to survive?
Ooh. Yeah. And is like, are you guys all the crew? And there's this captain who is obsessed and is like forcing you to stay and look, even though you guys are like running low.
I can see this whole scenario pivoting on that thought of, okay, well, this captain's obsessed with it. Like, you guys can't figure out what this thing is, but he wants to stay here until he wastes away just trying to figure out what it's talking about. Depending on your players, like, they might want to pivot like, well, we just need to get out of here. Like, we need to escape. We need to take the ship.
Dude, we haven't talked about how these are structured more as one-offs. Like they're definitely short form storytelling. I love when I'm doing this kind of thing. Like I have the big idea where I'm like, okay, this is kind of like what the thing is. This is kind of like what's going to happen if they maybe do this kind of thing. But so often I'll just be in the moment and be like, this is going to be cool. And I'm doing it and I don't care. Like nobody knows. So like my brain's like, oh yeah, if they just leave the captain there and they all decide like, you're going crazy, like, I'm sorry, but we're leaving you behind. And then as they're sailing away, there's like just giant green beam of light shooting up from the island. And like it flashes across the sky. And when they turn back, the island's gone. We are never finding him again or knowing what that was.
Yeah. You think of fun reveals, and you're like, what if I did this in 3 years instead of 3 hours?
Right. Yeah.
So don't do that. Don't do that. For this podcast, don't do that. That's bad.
Don't do that.
But there's something to be said for like if your players latch onto something, like there's always ways to, just look at The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Like
right.
Tolkien was like, oh, hey, here's a fun book, basically for children. People latched onto it. It's like, all right, well, what if this ring was like crazy and did all this other crazy stuff?
Let me just rewrite this chapter real quick.
Yeah, it's like you can absolutely do that. Like leave yourself little hooks, which you even don't even need to do intentionally. Most of the times those will happen organically.
So because the goal is to have something that we can bring, we get to this island, can't find whatever it is. I love the ration idea because it puts like pressure on it. You could say that like maybe we're hitting a line, right? Where it's like we have just enough that if we leave now, we can like get to port and be okay. But if we stay, we have passed the point of no return where like now we have to find whatever this is and hope that like it's going to be like save us, like hope that we are going to be able to figure this out.
What if one person can understand it? You write down information and you can give it to, like, you just write down something. Like I'm back on Mass Effect. It's like, oh, well, this one person like interfaced with whatever this thing is. And now they can understand it, but nobody else can. In a longer form setting, I would be very hesitant to do something like that. That feels very main charactery, but I don't have as much of an issue doing that for something like one shot.
So something like the first person who found the map.
Yeah. The person who like touches whatever it is first. That's not the captain, because the captain's too obsessed. It wouldn't want to deal with him. It wants a more rational person.
What about blood?
Generally a fan of it in certain circumstances. Other instances, not so much.
Yeah.
Great to have, bad to drink. I don't know. I don't know what you want from me.
I don't know. My brain is like, okay, how could you search an island for 10 days and not find the thing? And then in the dark, find the thing. So obviously I'm thinking glowing, and like maybe there is a glowing, like a needle, something like sticking up out of the ground. And if you touch it, your blood like activates this thing, like opens it up for you. I think we've decided it's something under the sand, like something deep within the island.
Yeah. I mean, like it's a little bit like that in Skyrim when you're first going to that temple place with the blades, and that thing goes through your hand and then is immediately not a problem at all, and it opens the big face door.
I never went with the blades.
Yeah, they wanted to kill Pathronax. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
fuck those guys.
Side with the dragon, baby.
It's how you get to Alduin's Wall, though.
Yeah, but you have to kill Pathronax. I don't want to do that. He's a good boy.
This is before you can have to kill him.
I only had one playthrough where I actually did the main quest long enough to get to the blades. Every other
That's
time,
also true.
I did not do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so there's no moonlight on.
No moonlight. Somebody turned the moon off.
So the moon's gone. You see this needle thing, this spike, this blood receptacle thing opens up a door to the down below.
Right.
What do you think is in that aforementioned down below? I guess this is where we get into the meat and potatoes of things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be something. There's got to be some obstacle, whether it's a fight or one of those puzzles that you don't actually come up with the solution for, because whatever your players come up with is going to be way better than whatever you were going to come up with anyway. So you just let them fumble around for about 10 minutes. Then you say, yeah, you got it.
How did you know?
I don't ever do that, for the record, Alan. When you're playing with me, you always come up with the right answers.
Well, I know James had a like a riddle for us as like a God Guardian thing. And I was like, I think this is the answer. And he was like, okay.
Yeah, sounds right about. Yeah.
Honestly, you made a good argument. My brain is stuck on the idea, the thing you said just as a passing thought, which is like, oh, down here is the thing that resets the universe should it need it, or something like that. Because I feel like when you go short, you have to have like really big bangs, like things have to happen fast and big. I mean, I guess you can have low stakes one-offs, but I always think it's fun when you can be like, oh, we were just people and now we have the power to reset the universe. Okay.
Especially with a setting like it's the island at the edge of the world. It sort of lends itself more to a big fireworks,
Yeah.
So the thought is the meat and potatoes of this adventure is finding the place, getting through whatever obstacles are there. And then at the end, there can be basically a moral dilemma, or just like a discussion of, is this the right thing to do? Like, do we press this button and wipe everything clean and start over? Or would that be essentially us killing everybody that currently exists? Like, I can see an interesting like debate pop up there, which would be fun for players to play out. I mean, I would love something like that, where it would give me an opportunity to take a step back and really kind of force me to like, well, I would feel this way, but how would my character feel in that moment? I think that's a really interesting role-playing opportunity, which is something that I love about one-shots. I find that it's easier for me to get invested in a character when I know that this is all I have. I don't try to think of story beats that might happen 3 months from now. It's just, this is what I'm doing. This is what I am. I don't need an arc. I don't need a whatever. I'm just... Right. And it also encourages me to play characters wildly different than I normally would. So an opportunity to take one of those characters that I would have made much more on a whim, much more kind of out there, and force myself like into that mindset, I think that would be a very rewarding thing for me.
Would the fact that there's no clear direct benefit to the players be like an issue? Like, would it be a more interesting or a better device if it resets everybody but you?
Oh, you get the opportunity to interface with it, and you can choose one thing to change in the world that comes.
Yeah. Or like everybody inside this bunker, gets to do this thing. And so like, this is the bunker at the end of the world where, we reset the universe, and like now we are in charge and can like reshape how things form again. And so like, especially if they are at the point where we harken back to rations and they're like, we are going to die on this island because this is not what we were looking for. Now, do we just like let the world continue, or do we take this opportunity to like survive?
I think you sort of need something pressing to make pressing this button, to make hitting this button something that is more than a fun thing that we can do at this theme park at the end of the world.
If we can leave and come back, this is a problem.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the idea of you're going to die anyway, either way. You don't have enough supplies. Like, you'd have to try to make a new life on this place until like, and this is the island at the end of the world. No ships coming. No, there's no rescue. You would have to either like live here until you could like make a ship or something, or like maybe there's like not enough resources that like, it's entirely possible that you're just never getting off of here. So if you choose to just maintain the status quo, like that's just kind of where you're at.
I think this also, like this idea of this reset button also kind of shines an interesting light on what exactly this map was doing in there in the first place. Whoever pushed this thing the last time had to leave some sort of indication. Maybe there was an instruction manual along with this map of break glass in case of horrible apocalypse.
Fascism. In case of fascism, break glass.
Yeah, fascism, a minor inconvenience, stubbing your toe, whatever works.
Yeah, things that are equally damaging.
Yeah, it's like we need a reset. That's a really good point. Maybe it reshapes the beginning of the adventure where it's like, what's going on in the world and how did you guys get this map? And like, was this just your captain being like, I found this really cool map and like, we're going to go find it, goddammit. Or was it like, yeah, there's a major war going on and we have been sent off to like find something.
Yeah, many Bothans died to get us this.
Exactly. Yeah, and then it becomes like, oh, our king sent us here to like win the war by basically like stopping the war.
I think we're sort of stumbling on something that I really like about one shots, in a similar vein to what you were saying earlier about how in a one shot you can have these characters who are a little bit more bold in what they're willing to do because you don't need to worry about, okay, how is this going to affect my fun and my friend's fun in 3 months. I always like in a one shot giving players, why are you here in this sort of more bizarre situation than just like, why are you an adventurer? It's like, why are you desperate and willing to go on this adventure or on this maybe suicidal mission to the end of the world? Not everyone is going to sign on with a captain who has a map and is like, hey, I know where we're going next.
That's actually a really good point. Maybe you leave that like backstory to the characters. So the characters tell you who they are, and all you ask them is like, hey, you're going on this pretty, wild adventure, not really sure what's going to happen or if you're going to make it back. Like, why are you willing to do that? And then you build what's going on outside the world off of those things. And so this button becomes like so much heavier because it's being informed by all of that.
Right.
I really like the in a one shot particularly, like or giving your players when they're creating their characters a prompt like that, because it, like I was saying before, like when they're thinking about a character that might be something wildly outside of what they would normally play, like giving them a direction instead of just being like, well, just make something. Like that's how you end up with some tonal clashes, it feels like.
Yeah. Like I remember, Alan, you ran a one shot for us recently where the setting was at a nobleman's contest, and it was like, who's the best nobleman? And that gave us a lot of freedom to make kind of ridiculous, funny characters that would then be, we wouldn't have made those if we weren't given that prompt.
Well, there was one shot that Alan ran for us that was Wizard School. And in my mind, I was like, all right, well, I don't want to just be Harry Potter. So I thought about it and I'm like, all right, someone who's using evocation magic to be the best interpretive dancer possible.
Oh, I forgot. And Jace made a carpenter.
Yeah, he was just like an old guy who like just was like, magic seems neat. I just want to go learn magic at like 80.
He went like back to school, but went back to wizard school. Like, yeah, this is going to be my second career. But his first career was as like a woodworker. I feel like this is doable. I feel like with enough sketching the in-betweens and doing all that stuff, I feel like you could definitely bring this to a table and play it.
Yeah.
So do we want to recap sort of what our thoughts are on this?
Yeah. How do we want to do that? My brain was like, because we're still figuring out how this is going to look.
Oh, precisely.
My brain was like, oh, what if...
No, this is we've been doing this forever. If you're just discovering us now, it's because we're on a new platform. We've actually been doing this podcast since 1996, but you would only get it if you sent us a letter, and we would send you back an 8-track tape with the podcast on it. So welcome new listeners.
It's weird. Spotify wiped our last 200 episodes.
Crazy.
There was some problematic stuff in there. So
yeah, it was at our request.
Like, do we want to do a thing where like now I go write up the tale of this thing and then like, or do we want to just recap it?
Put the prompt into Chat GPT and see what it comes up with.
Oh,
and see who, and we can vote on who did it better.
Oh man. That's going to age super poorly in about 5 years when we're slaves to ChatGPT.
When we work for ChatGPT.
When ChatGPT can DM for me, yeah, thank you. I will take that future.
That's fair.
The monster has 11 and a half fingers.
Are those fingers?
Why are all of our characters' hands so weird?
Is that finger a genital?
That is half of a horse, it appears.
We open with a large beaten vessel approaching an isolated island. Long ye journey has been, following the ancient map of Captain Schwartz. Cross many a nautical mile, through storm and bashing sea, now you find yourselves here, the island at the end of the world. The island marked on your map with a large red X. The island you've now scoured for a 10-day, with hide nor hair of any treasure. Was it all for naught, or in the dark absence of the new moon will the truth be revealed?
In the darkness of the lack of moonlight, the players discover a strange needle sticking up from a rock formation in the middle of the island. When one of them touches it, it reveals a staircase down into the depths of the island below the surface. As they descend through traps, through enemies long dead and forgotten, they eventually discover that this place was put here by a group of unknown individuals long in the past, along with a button. A button which, in time of greatest need, can be used to start things over from the beginning. Now, will these players, with all of their challenges and personal issues back home, will they choose to take this? Oh, what's the word? Take this
Button.
Button.
Yeah.
They find a butt.
Will they choose this daunting decision, or will they risk traveling back home, back to their broken, difficult lives?
Button.
You did a good job on that.
Well, thank you.
I was expecting you to pass it off to Slow, but he just got to coast the whole time on Button.
But
Trust me, I was just sitting there being like, does this button bring salvation or destruction? Is this even a world worth saving?
Only the Button knows.
Tune in next week to find out on Button Quest.
on Button.
And if you have any story hooks that you'd like us to explore and find out how to make playable at your table, you can just submit them right in the episode. There should be a little Q&A thing at the bottom of the episode. You could just throw them right in there. And maybe we'll pick yours.
I mean, if you submit one, we will pick it. We're not going to be swarmed for choice, probably. So,
unless it's bad.
No, I'll take a bad prompt. I think that's more interesting. Take a bad prompt and try to make it something interesting. That's way better.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. Even if it's bad.
Especially if it's bad. I want the bad ones.
We close with a group of friends gathered round a table, drinks poured and dice in hand. They listen eagerly as you begin to speak. What will you open with?